Back to school may feel a little different this year, following a year that included virtual learning and many unknowns. The majority of children will make their way back into the classroom and they might be feeling a little uneasy. So a great conversation we're about to have here today with kids' mental health with Sanford Health child psychologists. We have Dr. Emily Sargent. Thank you so much for coming in, and Dr. Caitlin Mickelson as well. I appreciate you coming in.
Thanks for having us.
Before we even jump into this, you said you're both fairly new to Sanford Health, and mental health and children is just, the need is so great right now. I think that's great that maybe, more doctors are coming in and we're addressing this issue. Before we even talk about, kids and COVID and anxiety, do you think we're seeing more stress in our kids because of going through the pandemic?
Yes, I think the pandemic has had an impact on children's mental health. I think that they have had a lot of changes. Their routines have been disrupted. They can't rely on if schools are going to be open, if they'll be distance learning. Parents have also been stressed, and we know that parents are a great resource for kids to be able to manage challenges that come along their way. And so when we're stressed as parents, it's hard to support our children. And I think we've seen an increase in the need for mental health care. Both I come from the Twin Cities and here in the Fargo area as well. Absolutely.
And you're right. School was always a safe space for kids and parents as well, but we're very stressed out as well. Maybe you could start with what can parents and teachers maybe expect as we start school, even next week? Are there some signs that we should be, a little more aware of?
I think kids respond to things very differently. I know some kids have done really well with the distance learning. They've really thrived with not having to wake up and go to school and follow that daily routine, being around all those children, other children, and all those teachers. And I think some have really struggled with the isolation that has come from being at home and not knowing what to expect. So I would expect a wide range of responses. I also think that children have been through a lot this past year. They might be grieving the loss of loved ones. They might have dealt with the financial strain that their parents have gone through. So I think we can normalize their feelings and let them know that it's normal to feel nervous to go to school. And we can model healthy ways of coping with our feelings for our children.
Okay, so everything was turned upside down for all of us. And we're trying to get back into a normal life, normal routine, a schedule. Can you maybe talk about the importance of a routine when it comes to helping our children?
Yeah, so the pandemic has definitely caused a lot of mix-up in families' routines, like you said, and so that may lead some families to have dysregular bedtimes and wake times. They may have engaged in more screen time than normal, and they may have engaged in some unhealthy eating and drinking habits. So I think one important thing to think about is how can we try and help reestablish a more consistent and daily routine in families' life. So whether that be trying to get back onto a regular bedtime and wake time schedule, whether that be trying to sit down and have regular family dinners together, or making sure that there's clear and distinct consequences and rules and expectations for your child can be really helpful. I also think too, as we kind of reintegrate back into a more rigorous academic schedule or a more normal pre-pandemic academic schedule, yes, to encourage your kids that they can do it and they can go back to how it normally is, but also being able to balance not pushing your child too much. So taking it day by day, checking with your child how they're feeling, encouraging them that it's okay to ask questions, it's okay to ask for help, and just to take it at their own pace can be really important.
Can we talk about the signs and symptoms a little bit? Because I feel like kids handle stress and anxiety differently than adults do.
Yes, I think that it's important to watch for any behavior changes in your child. So I would look for any signs of sadness, withdrawal, especially if that's been for 2 or more weeks. I would look especially at changes in eating and sleeping patterns. I think sleeping patterns, if those are disrupted, is a huge indication that your child might need some extra help. I would also look for some increased fear or not wanting to do things that they used to like to do out of anxiety as signs that it might be good to go and check in with your pediatrician. And I would also make sure that you're scheduling your routine well child checks to make sure that you're monitoring with your pediatrician behavioral health concerns, and also so that you're making sure children are meeting their developmental milestones.
So, okay, if you're doing your well checks, you're talking to your pediatrician, anything you can do as a parent yourself to help as well? We're not we're not teachers, we're not medical professionals, but we want to help.
Yeah, so the pandemic has obviously caused a lot of uncertainty, a lot of unpredictability, and so for a lot of families and kids, that can cause you to feel like you don't have control over your life, right? And so I think trying to encourage kids to figure out, okay, what do they have control over, and focus on that. So whether that be creating realistic goals for yourself during the day or during the week, and encouraging your kids to try and achieve some of those goals that are not too overwhelming, but that cause you to feel some pride and accomplishment in yourself, can be really helpful. Whether that be just encouraging them to continue on with different after school activities or regular activities like that can be really helpful. And I also think that just being able to check in with your child, create space to check in with them, listen to them, observe. Sometimes it's more helpful to let them do more of the talking and you just to listen, so that you create that space for them. And also I think too, it's just important to try and pick out things that your child is doing that is healthy things, and praising those, and making sure it's very specific when you're praising them, so that they feel more accomplished and they feel like they are achieving the things that they want to achieve, can be really helpful.
Positive reinforcement.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. Dr. Emily Sargent, Dr. Caitlin Mickelson, thank you so much for coming in. A great conversation, and we're really just getting started with learning how the pandemic's affecting our children, so I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Stay with us. Coming up next, we're going to talk a little bit about the rain outside. Can't ignore that. Lisa Green is tracking it all for us. Stay with us.